Well, we're going to talk about a little bit about Decker saddles. They're probably the more favorite of the two saddles, considering the Decker and the Sawbuck. But and that may be a little bit. I'm biased for the fact that I was raised using these saddles. My upbringing is packing in the mountains in the Bob Marshall of Montana. And I know that they're used extensively in Idaho and that kind of country. A fellow by the name of Robinette actually developed this thing for the Forest Service. It looks to me, after doing some research and taking a look at some of the military pack saddles that were used in the day to pack cannons and all kinds of artillery and things like that. I think that most of the ideas came from that kind of an era. So again, this saddle actually has quite a bit of a history too. And the thing I do like about it is that it has a little more flexibility. I think it's built a little bit stouter. It's got, of course, metal hoops in it, as you can notice if you take a look at this picture right here. You got two metal hoops, one in the front and the back rather than the crossbucks. So they are a little bit more durable. It also has what we call a half-breed, and that's a canvas pad that goes over the whole saddle. The huge part about this particular saddle and that half-breed, and I've seen them without them too. I don't know why you would use it without them, but out one is this wood bar that's in the half-breed right here. And what that is, it's actually to distribute the weight along the side of that animal, so that it isn't just hitting on one particular spot. And if you've ever seen some animals been packed, maybe and by people that maybe didn't know exactly what was happening, sometimes it just happens, but you might see even a hole develop, big white spot in the hole. And that's typically where a load just gouged that animal, for a long time. And you have to know that in order for that to happen, that animal had to be in quite discomfort throughout that whole period. And, we've always operated under the whole thing. My mules, I get pretty doggone close to them. My horses as close as well. But, if you can't use them, if they're laid up or lame, then you certainly are, you just can't have them around up there in camp. So, of course, you never want to mistreat your animals. So I think this is actually a little bit more humane saddle. It has a little more adjustment to it, so it can be modified to a particular animal, especially as well. So that's the reason for a half-breed. And we'll take a look at. You can read up on it through this deal here. You notice that the crossbuck or the Decker saddle can be used for what we call cargoing. We'll manny up a load in a tarp, and then we'll sling them onto the saddle, and that's what the primary use of that particular saddle was for when it was developed. But you can use it for just about anything, as far as anything a sawbuck will pack, a Decker will pack plus more. So you can get these. It's hard to put something like this in a pannier that we might or might hang on a sawbuck, but on there's some methods and ways of doing that on a Decker saddle, so that you can get in there with some bridge timbers or some long planks, or if you want anything that's outside of what could be put in a hard or soft pannier can be slung. Actually, some of the history behind this, Dan, I can't remember the meadow we used to go into in the Bob Marshall. But anyway, they packed a piano in there. I think they must have taken part of it apart, but I've also seen them pack boats, with a Decker pack saddle and stuff like that. So there's a lot of flexibility to it. Not that you really want to have to do that. But typically we're just going on a camping trip on most of these things. So anyway, lots of flexibility there. Let's take a look at what a typical Decker pack saddle would be. And I might point out too, most of the hoops is what differentiates it from the Sawbuck. And this one you can see it, you know, front and back here. That's made so that rope can slide easily, and we can do some slings. And I think I've got some videos on that too if you want to study up on it. And also we teach that in our packing and outfitting class here on campus. So you might think about joining up with that. The breast collar is typical like this. We also have done some yoke style pack breast collars on a lot of our saddles that we've developed over the years, and really like them because they fit more like a, you know, a harness would. And but this is probably the more typical one that you'd buy commercially, that you wouldn't have any modification. We also, just like I was telling you in the Sawbuck video, we also put an extra strap from here to here just to keep that from riding up into their, you know, that neck, the throat juncture, and cutting off any of the wind. So, you know, that's really important to have that breast collar so that they're pulling with it and pushing into it, and not up where they would cut off their ear. So here's a real good picture of the half-breed that goes on a piece of canvas typically, or of course more modern materials. Some people have used a more synthetic style. I also put some waterproof canvas over the top of that, and we call that a quarter breed that goes on top. Just kind of keeps your saddles from getting too icky, you know, when you're packing quarters and things like that. You can they can get pretty bloody, and a quarter breed on top of this whole outfit will make it so that you can take them off and clean them in the creek and that sort of thing fairly easily. And when you're operating in grizzly country like we have been for years, that's really a great thing. You don't want a bear to get into your saddle tent and rip up all your saddles just because you've got a bloody half-breed. The breeching is set up similar. We typically have another strap or two that the carrier straps that come down to the actual breeching. The pad is usually a little longer one that goes across the top of the hip, or the croup as we call it on these things. You'll see this very typically. This one, Deckers, as far as I understand, have always had this extra strap, and that's to keep the actual breeching down on the quarter so it doesn't hike its way up and give that mule a snuggie. So one of the major differences between the Sawbuck and the Decker would be this, that we have a single slung type of a girth, and it's a center fire cinch actually that we have on this particular saddle, and most of your Deckers are set up that way. It's set up this way so that this thing doesn't have any chance of riding up into the armpit of the pack animal, and it's really a rarity to see animals that as a result of that thing riding up in there, if you have everything adjusted correctly. So another benefit to the way the design of this particular saddle is as well, from just that, the fact that, you know, and you want to put a little tension on that so that, you know, this doesn't have a lot of movement forward if you're headed down the hill. Again, so anyway, that's pretty much a Decker pack saddle. For those of you that rather have me talk a little bit and maybe a little more of a visual learner, I hope you got something out of this, and sign up for my packing and outfitting class. Some of you I know already have, so we're looking forward to another one this year. And if you can't make it this year, just put it on your list, your bucket list for next year. We always have a good time and always supply all the coffee you can drink. So anyway, thank you much.